So it's a pleasure to be online with you this evening in this venture across the big pond to talk a little bit about the Irish Draught inspection process and how it applies in Canada. Obviously in Ireland, we're familiar with inspecting stallions here in Cavan in the springtime, and would have inspection processes for mares both in the spring and in the autumn. But I suppose maybe one place to start is why we inspect animals at all. And fundamentally, one of the basic requirements of the inspection process is that all animals are required to pass the veterinary examination. So fundamentally within the breed, we are looking for animals which are free from hereditary defects and animals which are as sound as possible. And that has been part of the process of inspection really right back through since the foundation of the breed. It's also a means of trying to maintain the breed standard. And I'm sure you're all familiar with the stated breed standard for the Irish Draught and how that can impact across onto the park breds. And we see the inspection process as being an important means of providing information to owners and breeders. So we've got a transparent process which operates and provides information directly back to owners, and the information for the stallions is published and therefore available wider to breeders as well. Bigger picture perspective, it's a means of evaluating the breeding programme and being able to keep track of what happens year on year and how things evolve over a period of time. So it's a core part of our breed preservation and breed improvement programme. And obviously with the purebred Irish Draughts, we're working with an animal which is part of a rare breed. So therefore there are considerations there in terms of preservation of that breed, which are taken on board within the inspection process. In terms of thinking about what we're trying to breed, we're wanting to produce horses which are sound, horses with correct conformation, horses of an Irish Draught type, which have got reasonable movement and action. And of course, coming with the Irish Draught is temperament is a very important characteristic and something which I think is valued by many people who work with the breed. So animals which should have a calm and a willing temperament with a good work ethic. So we're not looking for super athletes. We're not looking for horses who are going to go out and jump metre 40 tracks tomorrow, but horses with sufficient athleticism to do the jobs that they're being asked to do whilst conforming to the breed standard. So they provide a whole range of horses suitable for pleasure, for leisure riding, for performance horses up to a certain level, and certainly have an important role in crossbreeding programs with many other breeds. I suppose traditionally in Ireland that would have been with the thoroughbred, but then evolved into crossing with more European breeds, and also the reverse cross of putting Irish Draught stallions onto a range of other types of mares. And we've seen over the years producing extremely successful competition horses using that kind of regime. So, Andrew, you were talking about what we might consider with regard to inspection.
Yes, presentation really, and then the age being brought into consideration. I mean, your horse must be mature. I mean, we haven't got a crystal ball to find out what your horse. It's on the day we inspect horses. It's not a crystal ball to see what it is in 6 months' time. But I mean, you would agree with that, Charlotte. I mean, we need horses with proper presentation on the day. So we must be very aware of that to get prepared for inspections in time.
Yeah, and I suppose in Ireland, owners have a greater degree of flexibility as to when they might decide to present an animal for inspection, because they know that if they if their animal isn't ready for the springtime, they should be able to bring it out into in the autumn time. Whereas obviously in Canada, with the greater distances and the smaller number of animals, you may not have as much flexibility as to when you might present an animal. So my feeling is that perhaps you've got a mare that you might want to breed sometime in the future. In Ireland, the temptation would be to wait until close to the time she's going to become a broodmare before she's inspected. Whereas in Canada, I would be suggesting that you probably would be well to bring that mare forward for inspection at whatever time you can in an early stage in her life, knowing that you're going to breed her later on. Just because you may not have the flexibility and the opportunity to bring her out at a later stage.
Okay, we have how to prepare a horse for inspection. Conditioning is probably the start. I mean, with condition, the most thing I found was dental work. I mean, if we don't start off with a horse in good shape, we need dental work done so they'll mature with their and use their food properly to get to that condition. And we find quite a lot in Ireland and abroad there. Maintenance of feet is a disaster. Usually 2 or 3 days beforehand, farrier lands. Most centres is based in gravel. Next thing we have a lame horse, and you've wasted your money and your time with lame horses. So I would suggest at least 3 weeks before inspection to get your mare trimmed or your stallion trimmed. People talk about having shoes. Yes, but it's not necessary to have shoes. But please get your feet trimmed at least 3 weeks beforehand. Because a bare horse is going to have lame horses turning up in inspections, and they're going to be turned away straight away with the vet. So it's disappointment all round. Then when I talk about dental, then you'll talk about why. Well, you have more. It's easier to prepare a horse, but also when you introduce a bit. I mean, if the dental work isn't done, there's no point putting a bit in. Next thing the horse gets heady, and he won't be able to. Well, he won't lead up properly anyway. So they're the two musts. I mean, condition, hooves, and dental work. To start off at, you want to have your dental work done at least 10 weeks beforehand.
I guess around all of that, with young horses, it's important that they are well enough handled, that whenever they're brought out for inspection, that the vet can get in on them, that the vet can do all of the assessments which need to be done, and just to make that job as easy as possible for anybody concerned. And then in terms of horses who are used, being caught, used, having to stand up, used, leading, being cooperative, horses that are independent from their friends, that you bring them out, that they are willing to stand out on their own to be assessed. Obviously a horse that's leading well, coming up into the bridle, walking with you, happy to trot with you, will show much better than a horse who's having to be dragged along because it's not familiar with what it's being asked to do.
Also preparation of travel. I mean, people take that for granted. I mean, they think all morning of horse in the horse box, trailer, lorry, whatever you're transporting with them. I mean, they need to have mileage under them because quite simply it knocks a lot out of a horse. 10 mile up the road can knock a great deal out of a horse, never mind hundreds of miles. So you need to prepare that too. A lot of people overlook that, don't they, Charlotte?
They can do, and a few runs on the transport vehicle beforehand just to familiarise the horse can make all the difference in the world as to how relaxed they'll be for that journey to the inspection. And also just considering the inspection as well, that, I mean, I know we can have brood mares come forward that maybe have foals at foot, who are not going to be particularly fit. But if it's a younger animal, and one that's going to be presented for athleticism, and certainly if it's a stallion who's going to be presented for athleticism assessment as part of the compulsory assessment, then those horses really do benefit from being reasonably fit, because they have to cover quite a bit of ground during that assessment between the loose movement and then the jumping efforts that are required as well. So again, it's all about just making the experience as positive as possible for yourself and your horse, and giving the horse the best opportunity on that day.
We find quite a bit in Cavan at the stallion inspections. People turn up with stallions. Oh yeah, he has jumped very well at home. I would suggest to bring your, that'll be stallions or mares or fillies, to a different centre rather than your home, schooling them over a different, obviously the same jumping line, but in different ground, different surroundings and different footing, really stands to your horse in the day as well.
Yeah. I guess there are all sorts of things which need to be done from an administrative point of view, which from a society point of view, you may have other aspects on this, but certainly it's important, if you're thinking about bringing animals out for inspection, to submit an application in good time, which all helps with the planning, the selection of venues, and knowing whether it's actually going to be feasible for inspections to take place. And that applies whatever part of the world you're in. And obviously it can't be done without a certain amount of expense, so there are fees that need to be paid. And then on the paperwork side, there's a lot of paperwork goes on behind the scenes, but it's important then that the passport is up to date with information like the owner's details, if it needs to be overstamped because the animal has moved to a different jurisdiction, vaccinations to be recorded, naming and so forth, all put in place, working towards whatever the inspection date actually is. So I don't know from a society perspective in Canada, if there are other aspects there that maybe just haven't been touched on in that you might want to add to.
Yeah, I'll jump in with the passport. Because of the way things go around here, we do allow horses that have gone through step 1 of registration to have their registration completed at the inspection by the veterinarian there. So if somebody hasn't done the paperwork past step 1, their horse can still come forward to inspection. I mean, ideally, we want the passports, and we want to just be able to get on with the day. But for some people, it just hasn't gotten done, and it's more important to us that the horse be inspected than miss out on a year or two. So we do make that option available.
When we look at working towards inspection date on time, the rule of thumb would be to have your horse prepared that he's ready for inspections at least 3 weeks before inspections, and that means that he has the time when you travel and everything else. He's looking as good 3 weeks beforehand as he's going to look on the day, if you understand what I'm saying. So try and start 3 weeks earlier than you would be, and then you're ready for the day. Because obviously with the traveling, with the change of everything, your horse will go backwards. He'll never go to look as good when you pull him out of your stall, you transport him down the road. He's going to deteriorate for them a couple hours anyway. So have him looking as good as he is 3 weeks beforehand.
Maybe go on there just to think about presentation of the horse on the day then of the inspection, or just coming up to that point in time. So I've already said that the horse wants to be in good condition, fit and not over fat, but presented clean and tidy on the day of the inspection. And as Andrew's already talked about, that the feet, the hooves, nicely trimmed, done in good time, or potentially shod, but no requirement to shoe if the feet are sound and don't require shoeing. Just to mention that the vet will appreciate it if you do not put on any hoof oil or hoof dressings before you present to the vet. If you feel you want to put something on before the animal comes in front of the inspectors, that's fine, but don't go early.
The vet will have to flex all horses, so he will have to pick up their feet, so he will appreciate not being covered in oil. So each horse will be flexed, back and front.
On the legs themselves, we would say don't clip the hair off the legs. I know in some parts of the world, it would be normal enough to clip maybe whole body and legs right down to the toes. But with the draft, we would expect to see a bit of hair on the legs. So just leave it alone. Manes then, just well pulled and tidied, although probably preferably braided. Just do whatever sets your horse off to best advantage. And a tidy set of plaits can help just with the appearance of the set of the head and neck. Similarly with the tails, you want the tail tidied. Think about what length suits the horse in front of it. You don't want it trailing along the ground. Equally, you don't want it cut way up shorter than the hocks, but just balance the tail with the horse that's carrying it. If you want to plait the tail, be careful. By all means, plait it if you wish, but just make sure either that the animal is used to having it plaited, or if it's plaited that it's not over tight, because we would sometimes see animals come in.
It's wish.
Yeah, just obviously uncomfortable, not familiar with the tail being plaited. It'd be a very nice, neat, tidy job, but maybe not moving to their best advantage because they're just conscious of that change in what's happened to their tail.
Also with braiding the mane, if you are going down the jumping lane, I would suggest braid your mare beforehand or your stallion beforehand and let them get the feel, because quite simply sometimes it stops their bascule and they get tight in their neck, and then if they get tight in their neck they get square in their shoulders. Also, I would suggest if you do braid their plait their tail for the conformation, I would usually pull it out for the going down the jumping lane. I mean, we will give you a time to do that, because just they can get clampy behind then and they won't use their haunches. Yes, I can understand for the confirmation bit, you're quite entitled to plait it, but I would loosen it out for the jumping lane. Okay.
I suppose sometimes folks get a bit hung up on what they, as a handler, need to wear. We're, as inspectors, assessing and reviewing the horse, so it's not doesn't really matter what the handler wears, except that really you would want to be neat and tidy, in keeping with the presentation, the whole overall impression, and I'd just say wear appropriate footwear, recognizing that horses sometimes, if they're a little more fractious than normal in this sort of environment, protect your toes, and if you're going to need to run, make sure you can run in whatever you're wearing, and just keep it comfortable.
Andrew and Charlotte, it's Nicole. I'm wondering if we can talk a bit more about the clipping the hair off the legs. So if an owner has had a horse in competition and the horse is already clipped, is that considered acceptable? And is your recommendation then, if you're not in show and not already having the horse clipped, don't clip just for inspection? Does that make sense?
Don't clip just for inspection. Obviously we will, it's bone measurement that we're going on. But I mean, Irish drafts are, it's kind of breed standard, isn't it really, Charlotte? Then we do understand if they're clipped, they're clipped. But I mean, it's going a little bit against breed standard, isn't it?
I guess the expectation is there that one can see the nature of the hair on the legs. And I guess part of that goes back to times when there might have been more variety of blood in some of the back breeding of the animals. So aesthetically, we're used seeing them with a little bit of feather there. But fully understand if a horse has been out in competition and that's the way they're produced for that job and they're coming forward for inspection after that, no problem. But I would be saying if you've an animal coming out of the field, we'll be recommending that you don't do a clip out job in that sort of situation. If that makes sense.
Yeah, perfect sense. And so along the same lines, if that horse was competing in the summer and now we're into fall inspection and they've begun to grow that feather back, I know certainly mine grow that feather pretty fast, but if they're appearing kind of half clipped or not as much hair as they should have, is it important that an owner tell that or say that to either the vet or the inspectors so they know that they're growing that back in, or does that not matter?
It doesn't really matter, but it's bone measurement we would be going on. So I mean, it's
Right.
not. So I mean, we'll have an open mind with that anyway. That's
Great.
my opinion.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Yep.
Megan?
Thank you.
I'm just wondering if the turnout preferences are different at all when you're inspecting a part-bred versus a purebred.
The turnout difference.
Yeah, if you have different preferences, or if you like, for example, the unclipped legs no matter what, or because when I looked at the inspection guidelines, it specifically says do not clip legs for purebreds. And I just wondered if there are different preferences.
It's the horse we're inspecting. In fairness, I mean, we have an open mind. It's just preference with the purebreds to have that little bit of feather on them. But we have an open mind in it anyway, haven't we?
Absolutely. I mean, it's not a make or break thing, and yeah, with the part breds, I suppose it's would not be unexpected if they were coming with limbs that had been clipped out. The peculiarity probably is more directly associated with the purebreds.
Is there anything you've seen that people have done as far as grooming? Like adding oil and clipping in certain places and things like that that would maybe draw attention, unnecessary attention, or
My pet hate is blacker than black on chestnut horses. I just don't like it. But I mean, look here, it's not a make or break thing. But I mean, I would prefer the clear hoof oil on a horse rather than the blacker than black. It just looks so artificial. It's not a make or break thing. It's just a pet hate for me.
And for me, one of the pet hates is grey horses with a huge amount of makeup around their eyes
Hand eyes.
and sometimes on their knees.
Yeah. We like to see them more natural than made up like dolls, isn't that basically?
Yeah, yeah. But those subtle little things which show people can do to enhance the appearance of their horse, by all means.
There is ring craft out there, and I mean, ring craft is ring craft.
Yeah.
But then measurements of bone will never lie. The tape will never lie anyway. So.
And the expectation would be that horses, mares and stallions, would be presented in a bridle with a bit. And again, it's really just a health and safety issue to ensure that the animal can be reasonably controlled. But again, that goes back to the earlier point, especially with youngsters changing teeth and with potential for wolf teeth, to ensure that those have been removed, that the animal is comfortable in what you have it in. And then again, just in terms of the nature of the bridle, just choose something to suit the head you're putting it on. You know, you don't want a little fine show horse bridle on a heavier, chunkier sort of a head. Select the weight of leather to suit the head as best you can.
And on the lead, I mean, I would prefer a solid leather lead. Chains, especially with stallions, they get in the habit of start swinging around. I mean, chains, I'm not a big fan of chains as a lead. I would prefer a solid straight leather.
Because the animals are going to have to be let loose for movement, it is also helpful if the attachment between bridle and lead is reasonably straightforward to both remove and put back on again. Sometimes mares are presented with folded foot, and in those situations you would expect the foal to be haltered and to be led coming in and out of the arena. Now, while the mare is being shown loose, there's no problem if the foal is let loose at that stage as well to run free with the mare. Or if it's happy to stand on the end of a rope, so be it. As far as boots are concerned, boots can certainly be used in front while an animal is jumping, if anyone wants, but those would just be put on at that stage of the assessment and then taken off again.
Back boots not allowed at all.
And if a handler wants to carry a short cane just to have in their hand, no problem with that either. And it's probably useful to bring a lunch whip with you as well, because those will be needed for the loose movement.
There's usually a shortage of lunch whips in the world.
So arriving at the venue, always good if you can arrive in good time. In your case, you may well be arriving the day before. Just make yourself known to the organizer, and it allows some time for your horse and you put yourself to relax and familiarize yourself with the setup. And the photograph here is just kind of the kind of arrangement which you might find. A jumping lane around the side of the school, the fences, and a couple of areas designated within the centre, which is where the inspectors and the handler would stand while the animal is being loose moved.
It's a good idea to familiarise your horse with the arena. So if you arrive the day before, you're even in, say, cabin at the stallion inspections, you're allowed to let your horse walk around the loose pen. And I think it's a very good idea to familiarise your horse with the surroundings and the change of surface.
I guess there'll be certain documentation which you'll have with you, which the organizer will need to access and to tell you when your horse is going to have to be presented to the vet. And during that vet check, you would expect the vet to verify the identification of your horse. That may be from a marking chart or from a microchip. Or if there's a microchip to be inserted, it would suggest that that is left until after the inspection process has been completed on the day. The vet will also have the responsibility of measuring the height at the withers, the circumference of the bone below the knee, and the girth of the horse, and that will form the official measurement of the horse for the inspection. And then they'll assess the horse for soundness and for hereditary defects. So that will include things like assessment for wind, heart, eyes, lameness, any bony or soft swellings, any neurological issues, and so forth.
And this is why your horse is to be fit, because quite simply, we assess the horse for his movement, both walk, trot, and canter, and the vet is also there, so he is to be there to assess the horse for his wind. Then, if you don't have your horse fit, once you start going down the jumping lane, I mean, your horse has quite a bit of work. He has 10 to 15 minutes work, and he has to shine over his ass oxer, so he has to be fit for inspections. That's the long and the short of the whole of it. Okay.
And just before the horse leaves the vet, it would be normal enough practice for a blood sample to be taken on the day, which may or may not be analysed. So inspection with the vet completed, then there'll be a time for the horse to be brought in to the inspectors, who'll be in the arena along with a scribe, and there will be an arena party there as well present. And the first thing the inspectors will do is see the animal come into the ring, but they'll look at the pedigree information for the horse and the veterinary report, which will have come through with the horse.
Measurements will also be in the veterinary report, won't it?
Yeah, so that they'll have access to any notes that the vet will have made, plus the height and the bone and the girth measurements. And they'll ask then for the horse to be stood up for assessment for confirmation, and if it's a purebred, the breed type as well. They'll also ask for the horse to be walked and trotted in a straight line in hand to view from straight on the gate. And that's something that we find some people are very good at, and others, whether deliberately or otherwise, don't seem to be able to walk in a straight line.
Yes.
And as inspectors, it's much more helpful if the individual knows how to walk their horse in a straight line. And it's not hard to do if you fix your gaze on a point at the far end of the arena.
And walk in a straight line.
And walk in a straight line there. And coming back to the inspectors, don't worry about walking over the top of them. They will move to the side just keep going straight. Because it does seem to cause consternation.
Yeah.
Then the animal, the profiling may well be scored at that stage. You know, that you may have to stand for quite a while that process is taking place, before the animal is let loose to be assessed in walk, trot, and canter, and that will depend on the assistance of the arena party at that point in time.
And trainability here is a must. I mean, your horse must respect people. He must go round without stopping in corners. So that's up to you, the school and properly at home, that he's not stopping and starting and stopping and starting. He must change rein because we assess him on both reins. And this is where the fitness comes in again. I must emphasize fitness. A lot of the time we're finding, especially with mares, they're not fit enough. Okay.
Having said that, if a mare comes in and she is heavy in foal, we're not going to gallop the legs off her. We are going to treat with respect, you know, the stage that the animal is at.
But we must emphasize that the horses are scored walk, trot, and canter. We had a mare in Ireland that walked, trot, and we couldn't get her to canter. And she actually failed her movement because we couldn't see a canter, so she couldn't be scored for canter. So, I mean, you must understand that walk, trot, and canter is a must. Really, we are not, the arena party are told they're there to do a job, but they're not there to school the animal. You must have your animal schooled. Okay.
After the loose movement, then stallions must jump. It's part of the assessment. So the stallions proceed on to jump. If you're presenting a mare or a gelding, there is no obligation to jump. So it's entirely up to the owner's choice as to whether or not you wish to jump the animal. If you choose to jump them, that is not going to impinge on the decisions that have already been made with regard to the assessment of conformation, movement, and type. So the assessment of athleticism with mares is to provide and geldings, to provide the opportunity for an optional assessment for bronze merit in jumping.
And on the athleticism bit, the jumps will be up to height and they will be up to distance. It will be the same as what it is on the open circuit. Show jumping, there's no alterations in height or distance. Also, if you're schooling your mare, we would always suggest to put a pole in the middle of the first and second, or the second and third. Just get them used to it, because quite simply on the day, if they're short in stride or rushing, that they're used to that too.
I did just about what is the preference when they're stood up? Is it square all around? Just because I've had to present thoroughbreds and warm bloods, and they both like them stood up differently. So
preference in my case would be square in front and open behind.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think you'll find any of the Irish inspectors, that's the way in which we would expect to see them.
Perfect, thank you.
So following all of that assessment, there'll be a classification will be the outcome. So I'm sure you're familiar with the classifications. Class 1 meets all of the requirements. Class 2 meets the veterinary requirements, but not all of the other criteria that we've listed. And Class 3 doesn't meet the veterinary requirements, so they're not recommended for breeding, and their progeny are not eligible for inspection subsequently either. Just briefly to mention that there are appeal processes, again, which I'm sure you're familiar with in terms of the veterinary appeals, referred to other authorities in agreement with the society, or in the case of someone who's not happy with the classification that's been awarded, an animal can be represented at a second inspection on another occasion. to be viewed again.
Mares twice, stallions can be inspected twice, and then it's an appeal. The owners must pay for the full inspection, I think, for the third for the appeal.
So I have mentioned merits, and within the inspection process, there are a couple of merits which can be awarded to mares. So a very exceptional mare who scores at least 80 for both conformation and for movement can be awarded a merit for conformation and movement. And in the case of athleticism, a mare or gelding who scores at least 70 for athleticism on the day can be awarded a bronze merit. So those are peculiar to the inspection process. There are, of course, a whole raft of other merits which will not wade through here because those are merits that are earned in open competition through any of the recognised FEI sports.
And with bronze merits, we don't hand out like they have to be exceptional, don't they? They're not just handed out willy-nilly, and it's not just a mare comes down and clears the fences. I mean, they must show scope, technique. They want to be an exceptional mare for bronze merit.
Yeah, I mean, if a mare is going to earn bronze merit in open competition, she's got to be jumping double clears at metre classes in open competition, and to work her way on up through the grades. She's jumping metre 10 or metre 20 classes, but its reliability and technique will come into play there. And of course, all of this is based on going back to the breed standard and guidelines, which we're not going to wade through here this evening. But the inspection process has changed somewhat. I was inspecting back in the 1980s on the side of streets, and I took this photograph many moons ago whenever inspections were done in those situations, at times with foals running loose and traffic driving past. But obviously not as much traffic as there is nowadays. So mares were never shown loose moving. And indeed, stallions eventually were shown loose and were shown loose jumping and were taken for sample performance test. But back in 2010, the regime changed from being a pass-fail system to the classification system which we have today. And so we had the introduction of the loose movement, and we had over a few years the harmonisation of the stud books between Ireland, GB, North America and Canada, which was a great development and allowed for the transfer of breeding stock freely between different countries. Couple of little bits of video here which just might be of interest if they will run. And this was just taken from a setup where the arena party were being trained here to assist with inspection. So a school here with an animal just working its way around here, coming down towards the jumping lane.
Okay, this is in the UK, so I think Charlotte was doing the inspection and I went over to train the arena party. What we find there is this is a horse obviously not in the inspections. We're training in the arena party. It's hard, I suppose, when we go across seas. Usually in Ireland we have a set arena party, but we just give them a chance there to, you see the poles there that were either lengthening stride or backing them up there on the going up the jumping lane. Can you see that there again, Charlotte?
Just do that one again. Yeah.
And you can see the way we have all corners rounded off. Charlotte and myself is a great believer in red and white tape. Now we slow the horse down because he had rushed down through the last time. So we stop him here, then we'll release him forward. So this was a demo horse to get the girls in tune for the following day for the stallions. Okay.
So it's not just as simple as putting up the fences and running them around the circles in the arena.
No, no. I mean, we must slow them down. Their balance coming around corners. It's not scoop them around the corner and run them down through the jumping lane. I mean, we put in a lot of work to get a horse balanced, get him happy. As you can see there, he's been slowed up. He had run down through the last one quite quick and jumped low and flat. So we must get his hocks underneath him. I know he has his next fence out, but a fence on the floor isn't a bad thing. We like to see a reaction after though. We must see a reaction afterwards.
In the event that a horse is presented and comes through the chute in a not respectful way, right, where there might be a safety concern for the ring crew, what are the options available there for inspectors? Do you work through with the animal, or do you call it?
Once it gets to be a safety hazard, we stop the inspections.
Yeah, so preparation through that chute is really important from an obedience, even like a stop standpoint.
Yeah, we will work with a horse, but once it gets to a safety hazard, we'll stop. I mean, as I said, we're not there to school the horse, but we're not there to knock them. We'll give them as much chance as we can, but we're not there to school them.
Great, thank you.
And that's even before they get in the ring. Like if they're running around like orangutans outside the ring.
Yeah, they can be sent home. At any stage, a horse given bad manners, bad behaviour, and is a danger to either the arena party, inspectors, or vet, they can be sent home. Mares have been sent home. The vet goes in, can't pick up their feet. Given any bad manners, they're sent home. Can't expect people to get hurt with other people's horses.
What we have here is just to let you see the sort of setup that's used in Cavan for the stallions on the triangle. So they have a separate indoor area allocated to them, and they will go around this triangle and walk, and also in trot, and then stand at the end of it for the assessment of conformation.
And then they're trotted up on a hard surface in between the two arenas.
And then in the top arena, there's a pen created, purpose made for the loose movement and the athleticism. So there'll probably be maybe 3-4 horses go through there individually, and then they'll be brought back and the verdict will be delivered. So the public will be on the left-hand side outside of the arena here, and the panel will have viewed the little group of horses and deliver the verdict. And then there is provision, it's not often used, but there is provision for older horses who have previously been assessed loose moving to come back under saddle. And in this case, it was a horse who jumped his metre 20 tracks and was then being approved for sport horse breeding. So an Irish Draught stallion who is achieved his sufficient number of double clears at metre 20 can be approved for sport horse breeding.
I guess I'll pipe in here for our sport horse side. We can go through the process that is done by HSI for approval for stallions. But in Canada, we do a simple approved or not approved for sport horses. And then a 1 star if they're approved with performance.
Yeah.
They must jump in Ireland.
Yeah, they'll have to go over through the line for that.
Yeah. So that is all summarized on the linear profile sheets, and the requirements for confirmation are a score of at least 70, for type at least 65, for movement, which is walk, trot, canter, averaging at least 70, and for athleticism at least 65. So the assessment is carried out over 45 different traits. So for confirmation, we've 26 different aspects that are being evaluated. Type, which also includes temperament. There's one line for there, number 27. Then there are 10 points assessing movement and another 8 looking at athleticism. So quite a comprehensive assessment profile.
And on the back then we will have comments for written comments on confirmation, movement and athleticism, which will also match the front linear profiling shoes. Then you have your upper beam scores, which is the confirmation, the type of movement, as you can see the numbers there. And the movement, the walk, trot and canter, all must meet the 70 mark.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, when you say all must make, they must average out.
Average out at 70.
Yeah. If it's okay, just to pop up briefly, how that then is translated through into a publication. So similar to what you'd see in a stallion profile or a mare profile, where the average for the breed is right down the middle. And in this case, a mare represented for athleticism, who did the job very nicely, as we can see down at the bottom here, and scored an average of 71.7, so achieved her bronze merit.
And as we say, E is just an average. And then people say, oh, all to the left or all to the right. You must read the question. And then when you get the question, it's either strong or weak. So then you know which side to go to, either or either. It's not all to the left or all to the right.
But I think there's another whole evening potential in terms of profiling and interpreting all of that. But sufficient to say that in terms of all of those pointers on the profile for confirmation, there are very specific places that we would be looking on the animal to evaluate all of those different characteristics. And okay, we have a schematic here, and you can imagine how you translate that onto an Irish Draught animal for that type of assessment. Or we get down to nitty gritty if we're looking at the angulation of the front limbs, are they toed in or they toed out, as we can see here.
So obviously this is obviously toed out, so that would go 2 to the turnout. There we have an example of very poor shoe. Also here we have another bad example of shoe, very, very heavy shoes. Heavy shoes restrict movement, and also if there is any bit of a dish or a swing, they enhance more of a dish or swing. I would be completely against the shoes that's under that horse anyway.
And there would be a suggestion to me of hooves of different size there.
Yeah.
And again, there's a place on the form to recognise that if we find it. So really, in terms of trying to draw things to some sort of a conclusion, I suppose we see the inspections as being an important part of what happens with the breed, fundamentally, because of the importance of the veterinary examination and our desire to maintain soundness, which we think is important in terms of the longevity, for which I think Irish horses are renowned. And right or wrong, we believe that the Irish Draught contributes to producing a tough, sound horse with a good work ethic, and hopefully a horse who will work with the rider and help the rider. And recognising that they're no longer being used to plough and pull carts, but they must have sufficient athletic ability to suit the market, which customers want nowadays. I think as well, in terms of our desire to have horses who are fairly well conformed, a horse who's fairly well put together is probably easier and more comfortable to train and to ride that horse. And recognising that many of our horses, both purebred and partbred, are ridden by amateur riders, then ease of ride is an important characteristic, as is temperament. And in terms of the working with the breed, temperament is hugely important.
Potential.
you know, if you can't work with the beast, then it's not much pleasure.
I mean, amateurs are there for enjoyment, not for hard work.
And you've invested a lot of time and energy in the breeding and the production of a horse, so it's important for that horse to stay sound and do its job for many years if possible.
As we would say, good conformation is soundness.
Yeah. So, you know, all of these things that we're assessing are important characteristics. And we believe that the inspection process provides a lot of useful information back to breeders and to owners. And hopefully we have provided you with some little bit of information this evening, which will be of assistance in terms of thinking about producing horses for inspection.
You must understand, as inspectors, we're here to help you with your horse to get them through the inspections. We're not there to knock them, but we're always fair. Fair, isn't that it? Basically what we are. We will spend a little bit of time down the jumping lane to settle your horse. We're willing to work with you.
Yeah, so I'm bringing a stallion forward. So he's 4 years old now, and he's a big horse. So I'm still toying with, you know, whether he is mature enough. But would you expect a 4-year-old to be, you know, that's what you're looking for when you say mature?
He should be at 4. I mean, we would expect quite a few horses at 3. Just gone 3, say in March, so they would just be at 4. Yes, he should be mature enough at that stage. So long as you go with all the things we have suggested. Anyway.
The other one that I'll be bringing is a mare, so she'll be pregnant at the time. So the process for the mare is it just more the in-hand piece? So they have to do the walk up and the trot up, and then they go at liberty doing walk, trot, canter. Is that format for them? Yes. Yeah, but they don't have to do anything like more.
They don't have to go down the jumping lane. It's not part. It's a part of your colt's requirements, but the mare or the filly it's
no.
And with the mare, if at some later stage you wanted to present her purely for the athleticism assessment, that can be done as a standalone at another time.
Right. If she does go down the jumping lane and doesn't perform well, it won't take away from her conformation or her movement. She can still reach the Class 1 classification.
Okay.
And if we feel that she's not prepared well enough, we just cancel it. It's just a stroke put through that athleticism bit, and it's not scored. But it won't take away from her classification.
On that note, can we talk a little bit about a stallion that might be put into Class 2 coming back the next round? Would they come back to be represented?
They can come back, and they come back with inspectors will have an open mind again. There's no they get to run again at it. Just because he's Class 2, he gets an open inspection again.
There are numerous situations where Class 2 horses have come back and they've stayed in Class 2, and equally there are plenty of situations where Class 2 horses have come back, being represented, seen in a different light, and have gained Class 1.
What we like to see is people, when we make our comments on a horse that's in Class 2, that people identify the problems, see if they can fix them. I mean, we have had horses come out grossly overweight. People wonder why they couldn't move. They slimmed down their horse, their athleticism improved, and their movement improved. And you can say their movement won't improve. Yes, their movement will improve with several different things. Different shoeing and more weight taken off and fitter. There is certain aspects that won't, like offset knees. There's things that won't change. But I mean, say movement, you can do a lot for a horse movement if they're fitter and with less condition on them. That's what we find a lot. Our maturity. Yes, as you said there with your 4-year-old, you say some horses coming out at 3 and 4, that aren't mature enough. As I said, we haven't a crystal ball. We inspect horses on the day. That's what we do on the day. You know, people will say, "Oh, my horse jumped really well at home," but we didn't see him at home. It's on the day we inspect them.
If you have an older animal, like how far does it go in terms of what's age appropriate? So I'm just thinking, like, say somebody's got a brood mare, it's not mine, but it's a friend, a brood mare that had been injured. So, you know, she's a brood mare now. It wasn't something that's a genetic like a condition, it's an injury that's happened. Can that horse still be presented and still pass that movement piece if it's not, like, you know, it may have a lameness or something, but it's an injury related thing?
We certainly have had older mares come out for inspection. I mean, mares in their late teens have come forward.
Lameness.
Where there's an issue with an injury, one would probably need to bring forward some verifiable evidence as to what has happened. Direct lameness is probably slightly tricky to deal with. Impaired movement, restricted movement, stiffness in an older animal can all be handled. Where there's actual lameness.
Lameness won't be through the vet anyway. Like, I mean, we'll get in bother in veterinary.
Yes, and you know, from welfare perspectives as well. Nowadays one has to be so careful in that regard.
Stiffness and a little bit restricted in the sense that if we see a mare coming out at 14 or 15 or 16 and she has had several foals, we'll be a little bit lenient towards her. If she's been a brood mare, obviously she's a little bit restrictive, but
yeah,
we have to draw the line somewhere too. Like, you know, once age comes into it, we have an open mind.
Yeah, and it is that level. It's not like a you know, obvious lameness. It's just she's older. She's in late teens.
Yeah, slightly restricted or slightly stiff or something.
Yeah. So I mean, it's understandable that a mare that's 19 is not going to move like a mare who's 5-year-old. So you know that will be balanced, and it may be recognised, but it will also be taken into account in producing that upper beam score and coming up with a final determination. Just as with movement, sometimes an animal can be a little bit feely with the vet, who will recognise that on the hard surface, and perhaps there'll be a comment comes through to us, and we'll just have to assess how the animal moves when it comes in on a soft surface, which might make all the difference to how it can operate on the day. Again, some of those boys that have gone off and have had feet trimmed en route to the inspection rather than listening to the guidance.
Yeah.
I will also do a plug for HSI. You can just go on their website and look at the stallions that have been inspected over the last few years, and their videos are all there with the comments. It doesn't give you the whole look and feel, but it does give you a little taste of what the day looks like for that horse. So
we're there to inspect the horses, not to attack, really, but it just helps. And anybody that has been in an inspection with both myself and Charles, I mean, we'll do all we can do to help you. But your preparation is a big thing on your behalf.
We're taken in a big country, and yeah, it's always just great to meet with interested folks who are working with the breed in whatever shape or form.